I would be very interested in your thoughts on what the Chinese are doing or planning to do in the Indian Ocean. If you look at the Indian Ocean, the Chinese used to call it the string of pearls. Or we wouldn't necessarily use the same term. It's a very benign one. But if you look at what's going on, there's a base in Djibouti. There's certainly a lot more activity in Sri Lanka. There's a lot of activity in Gwadar. There's a lot more Chinese activity in Myanmar. And then, of course, in the Pacific Islands that go through the straits or around the Straits of Malacca. So the question I have is, what do you see the Chinese motive as being in this? Is it purely commercial? Is it establishing commercial relations, but also establishing the basis for a greater degree of security presence? And if the latter, what do you recommend or think the Quad ought to do, if anything, to be sure that the power or the balance of power does not shift in a way that's adverse to India or the United States?
Let me first say that pearls look benign unless you ask the oysters. So they may have a slightly different perspective.
So happy with the pearls.
But the point is, yes, if one were to look at the last 20, 25 years, there's been a steady increase in the Chinese naval presence and activity in the Indian Ocean. But there's been a very sharp increase in the size of the Chinese Navy. So when you have a very much bigger Navy, I mean, that Navy is going to be obviously visible in terms of its deployment somewhere. I guess when you come out of the east coast of China, you either go into the Pacific or you turn westwards and come into the Indian Ocean. Now, in our own case, we have seen Chinese port activity, port building. You mentioned Gwadar. There's a port called Hambantota in Sri Lanka. There are a few others. Now, in many cases, I would say, looking back, maybe the governments of the day, the policymakers of the day, perhaps underestimated the importance of this and how these ports could work in future. Each one is a little unique in a way. Certainly, we obviously do watch, many of them very carefully for any security implications that they have for us. So from an Indian point of view, I would say it's very reasonable for us to try and, to not try and prepare, to actually prepare for a far greater Chinese presence than we have seen before. Now, when I say that, I also make one other point, which is it's not, maritime concerns are not necessarily today between two countries. There are maritime issues there for countries to deal with. I mean, if you look at maritime threats, a lot of, threats of piracy, of smuggling, of terrorism. If there is no authority, no monitoring, no force out there to actually enforce the rule of the law, it's a problem. The fact is, again, I'm in a sense coming back to that theme. If one looks at what historically used to be the American presence in the Indian Ocean, it is much less so today. What it has done is it has left gaps. And it has left gaps at a time when threats have actually increased, because the problem forces, in a way, the problem people actually are much more technologically adept than they were before. So, I don't really see the Quad necessarily as a grouping which is meant, it's to me a bit old-fashioned to make it point towards another country. I think there are global commons there to be safeguarded. I think there are concerns out there which are better addressed if the Quad countries work together. In fact, I would even give you the example of something like HADR. When we had in 2004 the Boxing Day tsunami, the biggest naval presence and a very speedy naval presence at that time was from the United States. Now, I'm not sure if, God forbid, something happens today, that we're going to see a repetition of that. So times have changed, force levels have changed, capabilities have changed, and certainly in those that have gone up, China is one of them. But it's, there are countries with which we work, and there are countries with which we don't, or we work less, and I think you can see that.